Hi there, welcome to Camping Secrets, and it's time for another power station review on probably the hottest day of the year. I've got the UGreen PowerRoam 1200 watt power station. It's been sent to me by UGreen, and they're a great company who sell sort of chargers, and they've just moved into the power station realm. So I'm really interested to power this up. It's got a few features that I think make it really compelling, not least of which its price. It's only at the moment £849.99 for a 1024 watt hour power pack. So normally you're doing well if the price in pounds is about the same as the number of watt hours. So at 850 quid compared with 1024 watt hours, this is really, really good value at the moment. So I urge you to click the link in the description to have a look at the latest price. So just a few of the key specs. It's LiPo, lithium iron phosphate batteries. So it's got really good lifetime, 3,000 cycles for 80% battery capacity remaining. It's got 1200 watts of output power, and that can surge up to 3 kilowatts. And also it's got a nifty thing where it can rejig the voltage so that even though your average power is 1200, you can actually power kettles, allegedly. That's what the spec says. So I'm going to be testing that out in this video. So without further ado, let's dig into this. So I've actually had to come in now because my phone was in direct sunlight outside, and it flagged up a big alarm saying I can't do any more, I'm shutting down. So I stuck it in the fridge for 5 minutes and it's now okay, but I've come inside. So let's get this 1200 watt UGreen PowerRoam station unboxed, and then we'll talk you through it, see what you get for the $849.99. Nicely wrapped. It's got a sort of Jackery Explorer kind of molded plastic handle on the top. It's a decent weight and size, nothing too heavy. And we've got this little box of tricks here with cables. Let's get rid of the packaging. All packed really nicely, sort of Apple iPhone style. I do like a good bit of packaging. Just puts you in a good mood when you're unwrapping your new toy. So what have we got in here? Well, a little pouch for your cables, presumably. Nothing in it at the moment. Looks like a 8620 adapter. Instructions. 5-year warranty, so that's exceptionally good. So as far as I'm aware, only Anchor that I know of give 5-year warranty, but UGreen as well, 5-year warranty. Excellent. And you've got your XT60 connectors here, and connection, DC connection into the PowerRoam. On the side here, little flap. This can obviously go into your car cigarette lighter, and then the XT60 into the side of the power pack. And then you've got a mains cable. Now, it's great that the PowerRoam doesn't have an external power brick. You just plug it straight into the mains with a 3-pin 240 volt connector. And that goes into the side here. So on mains, it has really quick charging. If you want to go from 0 to 100%, it's about 90 minutes, an hour and a half. If you just want a quick top up from 0 to 80%, you can do that in a really fast 50 minutes. You know, and compared with some of the competition, that is exceptional. Because if you're going away camping on a Friday night for the weekend and you've forgotten to charge it, you can just whack that on charge and you're pretty much up to max, you know, in less than an hour. You can just whack this thing in the back of your van or car and off you go. let's talk you through the inputs and outputs on the PowerRoam. As I said before, we've got a really nice rugged handle, sort of reminiscent of Jackery's Explorer range. On this side, we've got a little hatch that opens up, and what I like about it is it sort of ratchets up and stays up, so that's nice to give you access to the inside. On the left hand side here, we've got a reset button. Basically, if you overdrive the PowerRoam, you go and it doesn't like it trips. It's a bit like a trip switch or a fuse. This little button pops out. You can't use the device anymore until you pop that back in. So that's just like a reset override. In the middle, you've got the 240 volt Kettle plug input. So it's actually got a power supply inside here. You don't need the external brick. So you literally just plug in to the mains with your Kettle plug and then start charging. And we'll go into charging later. And on the right here, we've got an XT60 input. And so that enables you to charge from your car using this connector with the XT60 in. So that's DC in, 12 volts, 10 amps. And that's also your solar input as well from your solar panels, up to 400 watts. And you can have up to 4 solar panels. So that would be 4 100 watt panels. Or you can have 2 200 watt panels, or presumably 1 big 400 watt panel as well. XT60 only. So if your panel's got different connectors, you're going to need some sort of conversion cables, which don't come with this UGreen power pack. Pop that back down. On the front panel, we've got one big on-off button here. If you press that on, the display comes on. It's a really nice display. It's not color, but it's got all the information you need. On the left, it's got how much input power. On the right, how much output power. And in the middle, the percentage of capacity left with a little visual indicator as well. And it does have a time to fully charge and a time to discharge. So when you're using it, it tells you how long you've got left at that current rate of discharge. And when you're charging, it tells you how long until fully charged. I really like that. And it's worth pointing out, you can use this PowerRoam and charge it at the same time. So that's really cool. Back to the inputs and outputs. On the left here, we've got a flashlight with 4 or 5 different modes. Brighter, sort of flashing, then SOS, and then back off. We have 4 USB sockets, and these are all high power. We've got 2 100 watt USB-Cs. I really like these USB-C 100 watts. You can basically charge a laptop with just a single USB-C cable, high power, and that's all you need. 100 watts, future-proof, really like that. And we've got 2 high power USB-As here. These are 22.5 watts each. So that's 4.5 amps, 5 volts. So 45 watts combined. Really cool. So you've got 200 watts from the USB-C, 45 from the USB-As. And I think these are permanently on. You can change it in the settings, but they're permanently on. So they will cause some phantom drain of the power pack unless you turn them off. And you can turn them off by holding down this DC button here for 3 seconds. That turns all the DC off. On the right here, we've got a 12 volt output. So that's typical cigarette lighter, 10 amp, 12 volt output for powering cool boxes and the like. And then below, we've got 2 DC 5521 outputs as well. These are 12 volt. And they're 60 watt each. So that's another 120 watts there. And these can be used, you know, they're like a regulated power, 12 volt, often used on, say, diesel heaters and other electronic gadgets like printers and things. It's a standard 5521, and they give you an extension cable here. And of course, you can convert, if that's not the connector that your gadget uses, you can get converter cables and things like that. So as I said before, you basically turn on the device with this, and then you turn on your DC with a single press of this. DC's on, and then basically all your DC outputs are there. On this side, we got 2 3-pin plugs here with its own isolation AC output. So that activates the inverter. Pressing that one down gives a little beep. And you've got a big fan above it, cooling fan. So I'll be listening out for the cooling on this Be interested to see how loud it gets under heavy load. But really like having two 3-pin plugs here on the output. I mean, some other devices, slightly bigger devices, have more plugs, but I think 2 is the bare minimum. 1 is a little bit skimpy. I think 2 you could get by with on a camping weekend. And of course, you can always expand this with a 3-way extension plug in one of them. I like that they're sort of opposed in terms of symmetry. So one plug comes in like this, and then the other plug comes in like this. So the cables don't interfere. They come in from different directions. Underneath, not a lot to say. You got the details and the serial number, and then you got these sort of, they're not really rubber, they're more plasticky. There's slight grip on them, but grips. If you put them down, you know, it does slide around a little bit, but not excessively. It is a very solidly made power station. It feels good quality. I think for the money, on the surface at least, it's got everything I'd be looking for. In terms of power, I said before it's 1200 watts, but it can burst up to 3000. And they do have what they call U-turbo technology in this PowerRoam. And you might be going, what does that mean? Well, what it means is 1200 watts of AC power. The power station can play with the voltage if you're just powering a basic item like a kettle that just takes a certain amount of power in and heats an element or something. The PowerRoam can play with the voltage to actually deliver 2500 watts. And that's something I really want to test because it's only a small little power pack. If this can get anywhere near to boiling a kettle with a standard kettle, that would be amazing. I have my doubts, and actually I don't really have a kettle that's about 2 kilowatts. I've got a 1 kilowatt and a 3 kilowatt. So my guess is it won't be able to boil the 3 kilowatt, but I'm going to give it a go. So that's the power station, really key specs. I think let's start powering some items and see how we get on. I wanted to understand the U-turbo technology a little bit more. I think what it does is, on something like a 3 kilowatt kettle, normally a power station of 1000 watts wouldn't be able to power this. It would just trip out. That's what I've seen on the Jackeries, the EcoFlows. They can power lower power kettles, but not a big 3 kilowatt kettle. What I think the UGreen does is, even though it can't deliver 3 kilowatts, it plays with that voltage, I think, to supply some current, but at sort of more like 1000 watts. So it's probably gonna run the kettle, but it won't boil the water as fast. So to test this, I'm going to boil a kettle of cold water off the mains, measure the time, and then put in some more cold water, the same amount, up to a certain level, and then boil it with the UGreen PowerRoam, and then compare the two. So let's start with the mains and just get this to the minimum level, which is 0.7 litres. Okay, let's get the stopwatch going. 0.7 litres of water off the mains. So, steam coming out. Let's wait for this to click. 1 minute 29. Let's get rid of that and then fill it up with the same amount of cold water again. Let's get that. Another 0.7 litres of cold water. Now we'll plug it into the PowerRoam, turn on the power, get ready with the stopwatch. And so turn on was about 2000 watts there, but it's dropped back to 1.3 kilowatts, which is close to the maximum. So normally another power station powering this kettle would have cut out by now. So I think this turbo technology just means the power station adjusts to be able to run pretty much anything, but probably not at its maximum power. So my guess is this will now boil, but it's probably going to be 3 times slower. So I'm guessing around 3 to 4 minutes. Three minutes 20. So yeah, that's pretty much what it does. It boils the kettle, but slower. And I don't think that's the end of the world for something like a kettle. Okay, we had to wait about 3 times as long, maybe a bit less. I mean, it was 3 minutes 20 versus 1 minute 30 off the mains. So I like that functionality, because any other power station I've tested would have just not done anything and just shrugged its shoulders and said, but this one, it adapted. They're taking over these things. They're going to rule the world. Let's plug the toaster into this power pack. Again, it's a high current, high wattage item. Let's turn on the AC. That's on. Let's see if that goes. So 780 watts there with 2 slots on. So let's put on the second one, and that'll push it over 1500 probably. And again, it's throttled the output to 1280 watts. So that is again clever. I think that is the turbo technology. It sort of measures what is this requiring and then limits it so that it doesn't trip the unit. So this is going at its maximum. Anyway, the toaster worked with all 4 slots with the power throttled at 1280 watts. So far I've not seen the U-Turbo allow extra power. You can plug in the mains and then plug this in. And we're off. Oh, we're at 29%. There we go, it's clicked into charging mode. 752 watts, 1057 watts input. So we've got a kilowatt going in. So you can see how fast that's going to be charging, because it's only got 1024 watt hours and it's charging at 1038 watts. So this will be fully charged in less than an hour. Okay, let's come back when it's 100%. 1035 watts of input power. It's saying 41 minutes to charge. 9 minutes remaining. Let's begin 25. Power dropping. So the PowerRoam now is fully charged, 100%. And so we want to measure the efficiency of this power pack and the LiPo batteries within it, coupled with the fans, the inverter. They all use a little bit of energy. So although it's 1024 watt hours, you're never going to get that much actually out of this device. So I'm going to discharge it now from 100% down to 0%, and I'm going to measure how much actual power is in this thing that you can use. To do that, I'm going to use my power meter. This logs how much power is going through it and adds it all up, and will enable me to see the efficiency of this power pack from UGreen. So let's just plug this in. It seems a shame to do it because it's such a lovely hot day, but I'm going to be using a fan heater here. It just gives a stable power drain from the battery. Yes, it's heating up the environment on an already hot day. Probably not good for global warming, but it serves me well to test this thing out. I'm not going to run it at the highest power. I'm not going to run it at, 1400 watts, 1200 watts. I'm going to run it at about 500 watts, I think. So let's turn this AC on and then turn on the fan heater. So that's 820 watts. Let's turn that down. Just put the fan on itself. That's 27 watts. Well, for this experiment, we're going to run at 800 watts. So it's saying about 1 hour of use. So let's see what the power meter reads after that time. 98%, 826 watts. If I look at the power meter now. $848 watts. 0.01 kilowatt hours. 7 minutes left, 11%. Still going at 827 watts. And we've used 780 watt hours. So the power station has just run out, 0%, and it has used 830 watt hours. So if we divide 830 by 1024, which is the official capacity of this power station, that gives an efficiency of 81%. So for every 100 watt hours you're putting in, you're getting 81 out. And I would say that's a pretty average score. I was drawing quite a lot of power, over 800 watts. My guess is if we drew less out, say using a cool box, 100 watts instead of 800, that efficiency would probably go up. The less you draw out, the more efficient these things get. You know, so it'd probably get up to 85% or something. I'm not going to test that. These tests take quite a long time. I think 81% is reasonable. I've had a lot worse than that with power stations using lithium iron phosphate. So 81%, not bad. What I'm going to do now is, because we're at 0%, I want to check out that emergency power supply side of things, because I believe that UGreen have programmed this so that it will still have a little bit of juice left in. One thing they mention is that the flashlight should continue to work even when it's at 0%. So let's give it a go. It's come on, and it's gone brighter. So even though we're at 0%, there's still a little bit of juice in there. So to still get 81% efficiency, even though there's a little bit left, yeah, impressive. Completely flat, 0% left. Let's put this thing on charge now and see how it does. So 150 watts at first turn on. It's in 7 hours, but then the power zip will kick in a bit, and that will ramp up to over a kilowatt input power. So I'm expecting around 90 minutes from 0 to 100%. So let's monitor it, and I'll be back when it's done. So we're back up at 100% now, and actually I've charged it down to 0 and up to 100% twice, because the first time I did it, I'd just discharged the battery from 100 down to 0 at quite a high power. It was about 820 watts. And then after that, I plugged it straight back into the mains to charge it up. But I think because it had been discharged quite rapidly, the temperature inside was over 40 degrees, it was about 44 degrees according to the app. Then when I tried to charge it up as fast as possible, the power station limited the input power to about 450 watts. And so on the first time I charged it, it took about 2 hours to go from 0 to 100%. Which is strange, because previously I've charged and got 1,000 watts to go in, and much quicker. So then I discharged it again and let it settle for a day, just to totally cool down. And then I charged from 0 to 100% again. And this time it did hit the 1,000 watt input power mark. Not straight away, it ramps up. And it was much quicker. It was just under 90 minutes, about 89 minutes the second time. It is much quicker when you just do a short burst. So if you do something like 20% to 80%, it charges that really fast. Even 0 to 80% is pretty fast, about 50 minutes, under an hour. So it is a very, very fast charger. But just don't do it when it's hot. It does slow it down a bit. They call it Zip, UGreen Zip, and it's one of the fastest charging power stations I've come across for this size and capacity. So just been reading through the instructions of the PowerRoam, and it does come with a smartphone app. So I'm going to download that now and try and connect to the 1200 watt power supply and see what it's like. So I'm hoping the app makes it easier to just control some of the key settings on the power supply. Let's open that app. Now on the front of the PowerRoam, there's a little button on the bottom left-hand side called IoT, and that stands for Internet of Things. If you press that, it basically activates the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, and should make it visible to the phone. So that is flashing, I believe. So it's spotted the device, and now we're connecting to it. Okay, let's do a Bluetooth connection. And we're on. And this is nice. You can see, hopefully, the app. We're not putting any power in or out at the moment. Got the U Turbo on. So it's a nice app. It shows all the key features. Let's look at the settings. I'd like to keep the display on permanently, so let's see if there's a way of doing that. Screen settings. Turns off after a minute. Let's say never turns off. That's nice and easy. You can change the brightness. Let's turn that brightness up. Doesn't make much difference. Audio tones, quiet mode, child safety lock, self-diagnostics, and you can set all the thresholds at which alarms get raised. There's a help center. Let's click that. Feedback, support. It seems a nicely designed app. Shows all your USBs, and very nice. A very clear indicator of how much battery's left. Impressive. So what do we make of the UGreen PowerRoam 1400 watt, 1024 watt hour power station? Well, actually, I've been really impressed, and the main reason for that is the price that it's at the moment. £849 in the UK for something giving 1400 watts, up to 3 kilowatts surge, and it's got pretty much every feature you could want in a power pack this size. It's got a nice rugged handle, great display, which does hours and minutes to full charge and discharge. I like having that hours and minutes. The app is really well designed and looks a really quality piece of software. And then in terms of charge time, this thing zips along 0 to 80% in about 50 minutes. It's a bit longer going up to 100% to preserve the battery, but it's still around an hour and a half for full charge. It takes solar, it's got 2 AC outputs and plenty of USBs. It really does do everything and at a really good price. For the app, you've got the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so you can connect in 2 different ways there, and I like that as well. It's a quiet unit, and it's got this great U-turbo thing whereby you can still power things like a 3 kilowatt kettle until the water boils. It doesn't trip out. So that's impressive. It must sense that it needs to adjust its voltage or something, and doesn't trip out. Yes, it takes longer to boil the kettle, but the kettle still boils, and it's 3 minutes instead of 1 minute. So what? Other power stations can't do that. I would say, you know, if that price goes up, then it becomes less competitive. So, you know, what are its main competitors? Well, I'm guessing the main competitor is the EcoFlow Delta 2, and that is about £1,099 at the moment. I have seen it a little bit cheaper, but that's from EcoFlow's main website. So that is about £250 more for exactly the same capacity. Yes, a little bit higher power, 1.8 kilowatts output instead of 1.4. But this charges just as fast in a nice small box. So at 850 quid, I think this wins. Other power packs are maybe the Jackery 1000 Pro. That's a similar price to the EcoFlow, just you know, £1,100. And then there's the Anchor 555, which I've seen it's on a limited offer at the moment on Anchor's website with a 200 quid discount, and that's £899. It's got 2 AC outputs, very similar unit to this, but this is still £50 cheaper at the moment. So in my mind, I don't think this has put a foot wrong as far as I'm concerned. If it stays at that £849 price, I'm going to call it. I'm going to say this is the best power station in that area of about 1 kilowatt hour of capacity. Probably the only downside compared with like the EcoFlow Delta 2 is this isn't expandable storage. It's a self-contained unit, a bit like the Jackeries used to be, you know, the Explorer range. It's sort of, you just buy it to do a job, great for camping, not that heavy, lovely dimensions. Yeah, thumbs up for UGreen, really impressive. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this review. There's going to be plenty more. They're going to keep on coming. So please sign up, like and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in power stations and all things camping, reviews and outside adventures. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.